Well, here we go. I am going to be reading Exhibit 211 for you today. It's a very short and sweet one, but this one this one just it's kind of like the great unsealing has given us so many little gifts that we didn't know or you know, didn't even ask for kind of a thing. And Exhibit 211, for as short and sweet as it is, it's kind of like the cherry on top for all of everything that came out. The main part of this, I guess, Sunday, if you will, is the PGA letter. And well, the PGA letter and then the 19 letters of recommendation that came along with it, which is what they're talking about in Exhibit 211. So let's get into it. 211 is a conversation between Ryan Reynolds and Warren Zavala. And this is happening between August 17th and 18th. It starts off with Ryan Reynolds. They have to start advocating for her. Warren, Tom is finding out internally about these two things. Spoke to Josh briefly. He is calling me this evening. His point is that the studio messaging in the article didn't carry in the way that he had hoped. My point was they needed to dispute it to kill it, not resolve it publicly. Ryan, they need to frame it the right way. This isn't hard. The sentence needs to start with feels like they're trying to thread the needle. They just need to fucking go straight at this. This is the quote. Sony would like to acknowledge the predominant narrative around It Ends With Us. This is incredibly wrong and untrue. This is part of a systemic and coordinated campaign by a crisis PR team. Warren responds, I plagiarized this. Ryan responds, and they've let her hang on the marketing angle as well, which is unforgivable. This is mess they got her into. They are not keeping her safe on every front. I text Josh about this again this morning. The THR thing they did was a joke. This morning I sent Josh this and has two arrows pointing down. He then says, quote, we see the backlash over how It Ends With Us was marketed. We see it targets Blake specifically, but marketing and messaging, a wide theatrical release like this film, is something that is designed and decided by teams of people, influenced by deep research and performed by teams of experts internationally. This work is led by the studio distributing the film. Our goal was to release a film that covered an important subject matter that wasn't rooted in female trauma, but instead female triumph. This is a choice we all made. We see and acknowledge any survivors who wish we marketed this differently. We see and acknowledge the overwhelming positive impact the message of the film itself has had. We're thrilled this film has over-indexed and become one of the great success stories of the year. What a profound moment for women in film. End quote. Ryan then says, and I've rewritten this extensively since sending to Josh. Can you resend? And this needs to be addressed immediately. This is the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in this business. Sony needs to step up for real. Enough is enough. And that was all in caps. That's why I stressed it a little bit more. Warren Zavala, they claim they are trying to kill it. I told them that's not good enough. They need to actually own that the narrative around all of this is untrue. Tom owes me. We will resend the above. He then also says, hi, who is in touch with Daily Mail? They can send them my email. And Ryan says, Jamie, spelled Jami. Ryan then goes on to say, they have to stop bullshitting us and get in front, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because these guys are doing this all with zero repercussions. Baldoni needs to see that an entire studio knows what he's doing. Warren says, copy. They're covering their ass. It's about exposure. Ryan says, Yes, but our backs are against the wall. The threat of exposure gets way worse the more important they are in reacting to this. She's almost at the nothing to lose phase. Warren, yes, I understand that, and that's the leverage. And then he goes on to say the reporter had reached out via email to Leslie, now has connected with Sony's head of comms. She has both the short statement and the longer version. I imagine killing the story is their focus. I plan to call Ari tomorrow and gave him his good friend Tom a call and have him give his good friend Tom a call. Ryan then says, yeah, please, all hands on deck. And the marketing quote I gave you isn't for Daily Mail. That's for them to release wherever is most impactful. Warren says, yes, I got that. I was saying the daily thing needs to be killed and then the bigger issue, which is the thing I'm pressing on them. Ryan, 100%. This was cool. Then he links some TikTok. I don't know what it is. It's no longer available. Warren says, call me. Hung up with Tom. Ryan says, our kids are really struggling and I'm trying to get them down right now. Warren says, I'm hesitant to put it in writing, but the AD issue is true. I haven't spoken to her about this issue, but he is saying they have to assume there is a paper trail of the N. Oh, there is a paper trail of N, the Wayfarer side. Typos. I'm not sure what they're trying to say in that specific part right there. There is a paper trail of N, the Wayfarer side. It was B, as in Blake, who wanted her fired. We argued about the statement, which he both said isn't possible due to liability, and getting Tony on the record to support her and speak to the marketing issues was big for them. However, carried around the world, but didn't combat the fundamental issue, celebrity and gossip. We left it that he's putting himself in the studio in a position with you and Blake legally. There is exposure on both sides for him. I will have Ari talk to him, but I do think this is people coming forward in support of her is our way through regardless. I have to assume they have a cadre of things they plan to utilize within the boundaries or within the bounds of production to make her look bad. Ryan, yeah, but Sony needs to speak to the marketing and frame it the way I mentioned in that text. I don't see any way, shape, or form that it would put them in a bad position. It's just the truth. And they have it within their power to do this. It's a light lift, and the least they can do. They can't abandon her on this subject. And yes, the AD was fired. She wasn't keeping people safe and set. She was negligent in almost every way, and one of the reasons Blake and the other women dealt with so much dark behavior. She was let go before going back to work. Ryan also says, and this was almost part of the return to work document, but they hired a new AD. Ryan then says, the backlash to the backlash will hopefully start soon. Warren responds, this is what I'm waiting for. Tom said the same. He claims they addressed the marketing in the article. I suppose it's about getting Tara and Josh to understand the difference. I need to go back and read their article and your draft. Then Ryan sends another TikTok. He then says, and you know the most heartbreaking thing about this analysis? Blake didn't realize that the rest of that interview was so redemptive. They're obviously only playing the section Melissa Nathan isolated and amplified. Blake believed their propaganda. She believed that she fucked up and has been kicking her own ass for the unforced error. But she actually answered his question with sensitivity and thoughtfulness. Ryan then says they aren't framing it with any teeth. It sounds like a bland as fuck studio opining on their big win. It needs to begin by acknowledging the cultural conversation and the systemic campaign coordinated by Justin's crisis management team. Warren then says, I think the last part is what the lawyers buck against. Let us keep leaning in. We will unleash Ari, but someone playing the game at the same level as them in terms of the internet is what we need. Or trust the backlash will happen organically. Because it makes no fucking sense. I've already noticed posts like yours above. There is a I'm going to wait and see, or this doesn't make sense sentiment building in my estimation. Ryan then says, then don't name Justin, but they can't pretend that something like this is normal. This is coming from his crisis PR. Warren says, yes, that's fucked, and I'm not surprised she's doing that. How can one not? She's probably rethinking all of these moments. If I'm feeling disheartened, she has to be gutted. She will make it through this. Warren says, "We are at war." And mind you, I want to give the timestamp for those two comments from Warren. So he says at 10:44 p.m., "Yes, that's fucked, and I'm not surprised she's doing that. How can one not? She's probably rethinking all of these moments. If I'm feeling disheartened, she has to be gutted. She will make it through this." So that's 10:44. And then 10:45, he says, "We are at war." And all of a sudden at 10:53, Ryan texts back, "Did something happen I'm unaware of?" I'm pointing that out because it bugs me when this happens in conversations. Like, we're in the same conversation, nothing new has happened. Like, I'm adding to the already ongoing conversation. But he's like, "Did something happen I'm unaware of?" And at 10:56, so 3 minutes later, Warren's like, "No, just a general assessment of these fuckers." And Ryan says, "Agreed." Then Warren sends an Apple News link. Ryan responds, "Any update on Sony?" And "Can Ari go full Ari on Tom?" Warren responds, "They effectively got the Daily Mail to not print the AD story. I huddled with Jamie, spelled Jami, earlier and let her know. I also want to be clear on our task for Ari." He then says he will willfully go full Ari on all of them, but we want to know what we are having him accomplish. And then Ryan says, "That is at least some good news. This wasn't for the DM story, but Blake remembered that every single department head from the film crew wrote letters to the PGA, so Blake would have to have the producer's mark in the credits. So that Blake would have the producer's mark in the credits. There are 19 of them, and each one is a testimonial to not only her work ethic, but her character. It's so goddamn redemptive, and I'm so happy we have them. Also, they're timestamped from a couple months back, so nobody can say it was reactive to this situation. It's irrefutable and objectively clear what her contribution was and how she worked so well and so inclusively, with each department of the crew." And Warren says, "Redemptive is exactly the right word. I agree. I'm not a part of the strategy going forward, and it's opaque to me, but I would like to think people should be aware of these letters. We have to assume there are also notes or texts sent to the other side from crew and actors saying kind things. Whether or not they were really meaningful, they may now begin to surface if there is a volley of information." I'm so sorry. I'm like, were they hoping that there were going to be kind letters or texts? I don't know. Um, so much like the PGA letter, and they're even citing the letters of recommendation here as if this is an amazing thing for them. I can't tell if it's that nobody is communicating with one another, or if this is a sign that Blake has been telling whatever she thinks the person in front of her needs to hear to feel good, or like if that's and or like her brand of her ability to manipulate the people that are around her. Because the you see a clear differentiation between what, and I get it. Warren, Ryan, these people are not lawyers. But then on the legal side, it's kind of like, no, we don't want to establish how much she has worked. We don't want to establish how much she has contributed. We don't want to establish how much she was in leadership or how many people will vouch for her being in leadership. But then over here, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so amazing that we have all of these letters and we have all of this to provide to show how involved she was and how much she was in the lead." And now this is all coming back to bite him in the ass. I just Oh, man. Because then it's just kind of sad that it would take this much effort for a friend, a person, a wife to get, I don't know, notoriety, whatever. But it's also kind of like, I don't know, d do people, and if you're that level of a celebrity, do you even pay attention to the product? Like, the other side, what's been like, the output from these projects? Because we've already seen texts where Blake has said to Taylor, like, "You've already saved one movie from the trash bin," essentially. She's brought something back from the dead, and so I'm kind of like, does Taylor and her husband and all of these people, do they not even pay attention to the work that she does, the things that come out of the work that she does, and just expect that if something did good at the box office, that, like, that's it, that's done, that was a success? Which I guess in that regard, if I if I were in a movie and let's say I was given a part that I'm just not right for, but for whatever reason, the studio, the film production wanted me in that part, and then I'm just showing up to do that part, whether I like it, whether I agree with it or not, and then I don't like, it's not meant for me, so it's not, like, the most stellar performance. Would I then be satisfied? Would I then be able to have the confidence to be like, "You know what? It wasn't my forte, it's not my strong suit, but it performed well at the box office, I still got paid, call it a done day. It's another day at the office," right? Is is that the way this is being treated? Or or is it, because I'm just kind of like, how do you see some of the stuff that Blake has written and then help her fight to get that pushed forward and to get that in a movie, or I don't know, because man, I mean, that's the thing, because Taylor's whole plight for the Eras Tour is about the morality and the ethics of autonomy and owning the rights to your own work and representation of your own work, but then she's helping Blake take over somebody else's work. And not only taking it over, but also, like, taking the polish off of it, right? Because in my opinion, when I look at a lot of the movies that she's been in, I can tell when she says a line, I can tell the parts that she's been like, "No, no, no, it should be this." And then her line is interjected. It's just it's so cringy. Like, they're all cringy lines, and I just can't imagine knowing that your friend, your person is this tragically untalented. I mean, she couldn't even keep Preserve going for a year, and Preserve was literally based on writing, and people saw her writing and were so unenthused that it didn't even survive a year. So why, oh, it's exhausting to think about, but here we can see that they were firmly believing that these letters would be redemptive, that her PGA mark would be redemptive. But now, in the legal part, now it's almost like the right hand isn't talking to the left hand. And in one world, it serves a great purpose that they have these letters of recommendation and the PGA letter. But then, on the other hand, in the legal world, oh my God, like, we don't want that, is what I would think that the legal team is thinking. So I can't tell if it's a lack of communication or if it's how do I put this? Curated communication, meaning is Blake going to each individual party? And that's the thing. So if you're in a situation, um, because this feels very much like Gossip Girl Part 2 in terms of Penn Badgley being isolated and this happening to Penn Badgley 20 years ago. And here we are 20 years later, and the same thing is happening, which in my breakdown, the analysis of the patterns of behavior, that's why I constantly fell back on the idea that when you recognize a disordered pattern of behavior, take that as your warning. It's I'm not here to diagnose anybody. I'm not here to say that somebody's a narcissist. I'm not here to say that somebody has borderline personality disorder. But what I am here to say is when you notice the patterns of disordered behavior, know that the main feature of people with personality disorders is that behavior will never change. So will forever be bailing water out of your sinking boat if you stay in this sinking boat with somebody who has a personality disorder, because the textbook definition of a personality disorder is that it doesn't change over time. The person they were at 20 years old is the person they are at 30, is the person they are at 40, and that will be the forever case unless and until they not only accept intensive therapeutic help, but they also are willing to do the intensive therapeutic work. Meaning, a lot of times people with personality disorders will get into therapy and they'll talk to the therapist, but then they'll still take whatever comes from that therapist and do what they do with everything else. They will hear what they want to hear. They will process that information in a way that makes them feel good, and it won't come out with the same outcome with as a person who doesn't have a personality disorder. A person without a personality disorder is going to hear what the therapist says, and most often they will be able to work with that new information and come to a new conclusion. Maybe not immediately. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that it happens, whereas a person with a personality disorder, they will tiddlywink. They will do the carrot to the donkey thing for as long as they can. As long as it's off in the distance and they're not actually doing it now, they will keep it that way for as long as they can. And they will do anything to not look at themselves. It will always be about looking at everybody else and how they all did wrong, and never about what they as an individual did or address what they could do the next time or how to avoid this kind of a thing in the future. Which is why I've talked about all of this, because I'm kind of like, I think Justin Baldoni is cut from the kind of cloth where we don't believe people like this exist. We don't believe people like this would do these things. We think it's impossible. And so then we meet somebody who's like this and we give them the benefit of the doubt. We believe in the good of the person and we hope for the best. And then something like this happens. And we're left so baffled because what do you mean? What do you mean they can't see what I see? So that's why I look at the thing with Gossip Girl and Penn Badgley, and I think this is a pattern. We've been here before. It's the same story, different characters. So just keep that in mind. But again, the whole pulling in of other people to assert power over somebody else based off of the idea that this is just creative differences and a power struggle. That's what's so disappointing about this whole thing. So let me know what you have questions on. I'm going to look for other things. There was a couple of other things that I saw that I was like, "Ooh, those would be good ones to read." So hopefully I'll have some time. I'm really trying to keep up with the questions and answers, but it's just harder for me to find time lately. But I have a long list. I have a long and running list of things I want to read and talk about and pull in. So thank you for coming back and visiting with my posts.